Okay, hola a todos. Welcome back for another lesson. Today we're going to continue with the third form of stem changing verbs. We just talked about the O that goes to UE and the E that goes to IE. And today we'll look at the third class, which is the E that goes to I. There are not very many of these, so it's not as common as the other two forms. But we've already seen that the big reason they do that is to change the pronunciation of the verbs, and it's the same thing in this one. So the most common verb, this one we'll start with, is pedir, and pedir means to ask. So the stem, PED, the E changes to I in the stem changing and becomes pid. And again, that's just in the first person singular, second person singular, third person singular, and third person plural. So back to the boot. So pido, pides, pide, pedimos, pedis, and piden. Okay, and again, it's all based on pronunciation. So here you go for one way to look at it. Pido, pides, pide, pedimos, pedis, piden. And then a reminder that we will put in parenthesis at least the E to I, or at least the I. So you know that final E in the stem will change to an I. Okay, the most common ones are these: conseguir, which means to get or to obtain something. So conseguir means a physical thing. I need to get my drink. I need to get a football. So physical things that need to be obtained, not like I need to get out of here, but to actually physically get something. Decir, which means to say or to tell. Repetir, to repeat. And seguir, to follow or to keep doing something, to continue doing something. So some examples of where those verbs conjugate again: pido favores cuando es necesario. Javier dice la verdad. Decir, the E goes to I, so it becomes dice, third person singular. Sigue con su tarea. Seguir, the E goes to I, so it becomes sigue. And consiguen, again, that conseguir and seguir follow the same conjugation, but they're two different words. So consiguen ver buenas películas. They're able to obtain the seeing of good movies, basically. Okay? Before we go back to the boot, as we talked about in the last lesson, we have pido, pides, pide, pedimos, pedis, and piden. So again, these stem changing verbs are going to follow the boot, which we've talked about. All right, now there is something else irregular that happens with some of these verbs. And actually, this is section 4.3. All of section 4.4 is going to be on different forms of irregular verbs. But some of these verbs are both stem changing and irregular. So, for example, in the verb seguir, in the verb decir, the yo form is digo. So it's the E goes to I, but then the C gets changed to D. So we already talked about some go verbs. We talked about tengo from tener and vengo from venir. So digo is also, so it's stem changing E to I, and it's also a go verb in the yo form. So yo digo. Seguir does the same thing. The E goes to I, and it's a go verb. So sigo. And conseguir, same thing, consigo. Now, the reason those are considered to be a little bit extra irregular, if you look at the spelling of seguir and conseguir, you'll see that U in there. And a couple of you have already asked me questions about those U's. That U is a silent U in Spanish. And if you go way back to the very first or second lesson, I told you there really are no silent letters in Spanish. And the U is the exception. The U is silent after a Q. Think of the word que and quien. We don't say que or quien. The U is there because the Q is not a native Spanish letter, let's just say. So the U is used after Q's in Spanish, but it's also used when a G needs to have a hard sound instead of a soft sound. So if we just spelled seguir, S-E-G-I-R, it would be pronounced seguir, because the G and the C before E's and I's has their soft sound. So because we want this to be pronounced seguir with that hard G sound, there's a U in there which forces that G to get its hard sound out of it. So seguir and conseguir. Well, when we go to that first person singular form, sigo, that G already automatically has that hard sound because it's before an O. And so the U no longer serves a purpose. And so the U disappears. So that's the way in which seguir and conseguir and some other verbs we'll look at are additionally irregular is in the spelling. So it is stem change and the E goes to I. It's a go verb in the first person singular. And then the spelling change because that U is no longer needed. Okay. So probably more information than many of you wanted, but now you know. So, clase repitan. Let's read these 3 sentences in the white boxes. Repitan, sigo su plan. Consigo novelas en la librería. Yo digo la verdad. Okay, so those are go verbs, and they're also E to I stem changing. Okay, so here you go. If you'll number your papers 1 through 5, 3 times, and I'll have you go through and conjugate these 3 verbs, repetir, which is E to I stem changing, decir, which we've been talking about, and seguir. So all 3 are E to I in the boot, and go ahead and fill in your conjugations, and then come back and we'll go through it. Okay, muy bien. Ya tenemos número 1 para repetir. Arturo y Eva repiten, right? So the E goes to I, repiten. Número 2, yo repito. Número 3, nosotros repetimos. Repetimos. That E stays there. Número 4, Julia repite. Número 5, Sofía y yo repetimos. Decir. Número 1, yo digo. Número 2, él dice. Número 3, tú dices. Número 4, usted dice. Y 5, ellas dicen. If we added nosotros, what would nosotros be? It would be decimos, DE. En seguir, número 1, yo sigo. 2, nosotros seguimos. So there's no seguimos. The U is silent. Seguimos. Número 3, tú sigues. Same thing, U is silent. Número 4, los chicos siguen. Y número 5, usted sigue. Okay, so watch your pronunciation. Just remember that U is silent after a G. Okay, muy bien. Aquí pues vamos a hacer otra vez. Van a poner sus números del 1 al 6, 1 through 6, and then conjugate the correct form of these verbs that are in parentheses. Make sure you figure out who the subject of the sentence is, and then conjugate it accordingly. Okay, so pause and come back when you're ready. Okay, número 1. Cuando mi familia pasea por la ciudad, mi madre siempre va a un café y pide una soda. Now, one thing that I probably didn't mention is pedir means to ask for. And so you don't put any other preposition after pedir. You don't say pide por una soda because pedir means to ask for. That for is already included in the verb. So it will be wrong if you put a form of for after that. So pide una soda, she asks for a soda. Número 3, pero mi padre dice que perdemos mucho tiempo. Tiene prisa, he's in a hurry, por llegar al bosque de Chapultepec. Número 3, mi padre tiene suerte porque siempre consigue lo que desea, what he wants. Número 4, cuando llegamos al parque, mis hermanos y yo seguimos conversando con nuestros padres. Y número 5, mis padres siempre repiten la misma cosa. Nosotros tomamos el sol aquí sin ustedes. Y número 6, yo siempre pido permiso para volver a casa un poco más tarde porque me gusta mucho el parque. Okay, for this one, you're going to listen to this radio broadcast and you're going to number on your papers from 1 through 6. There are going to be 6 different verbs. You're going to hear them and let's go from listening to knowing what verb it is and what form it's conjugated in, and then to write it down. Okay, so here we go. You'll listen and I will unhide the verbs as they go through.
4.3, stem changing verbs, E to I. 1. Completar. Listen to this radio broadcast and fill in the missing words.
Este fin de semana, los excursionistas piden más senderos. Dicen que ir de excursión a las montañas es una diversión muy popular y repiten que quieren más senderos. Si lo consiguen, la gente va a estar muy feliz. Si no, ustedes pueden seguir la historia aquí en Radio Montaña.
Okay, so we had our 6 different verbs. Piden, they're asking for more trails. Dicen, they say that going hiking in the mountains is fun, is very popular entertainment or fun. Repiten, they repeat. Que quieren, they want more trails. Si lo consiguen, if they obtain it or get it, you'll be very happy. If not, you can follow, pueden follow, can seguir, follow the story here on Radio Montaña. Okay, muy bien. Hope that gives you some understanding of this type of stem changing verb. So far, we've done E to IE, O to UE, and now E to I. And then in the next section, 4.4, we'll talk more about those irregular verbs, especially ones that are irregular in the first person. All right, muy bien. As always, let me know what kind of questions you have and how I can help. Bye, guys.